What happened at Big Ten Media Days with USC? I'll tell you.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holken, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day, whether you're watching this show on YouTube. Wherever you are downloading our podcast, the show is always free. The show always appreciates your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, I'm done. It's time to walk the walk. I've heard all the talk. I need fall camp to start. USC's first ever Big Ten Conference Media Day. It's in the books. It went off without a hitch. Fantastic. One of the schools from LA did great. The other one had a rough start. Even when USC was in the Pac-12, I want to remind everybody, for the most part, these events are, for the most part, really boring. A lot of coach speak. Coaches, players, they know what to anticipate. They know what questions are coming, how to respond. There was even one question where Miller Moss, he finessed the situation perfectly during the player scrum sessions after lunch. He said, hold on a sec. I'm trying to follow my media training here. And he was laughing the whole time, and the media is laughing along with him. Certain ways you have to answer certain questions. So what was funny? That was a funny moment. There was also other funny moments, but also a really sad moment, depending on how you want to view the situation. Wasn't just USC making their first impression. The Bruins head coach, Deshaun Foster, he was making his first impression in front of the class. Ugh, look, I don't care whether you're the new kid in school, regular teacher, substitute teacher, parent, head coach. You do not want to have one of those OMG moments on your first day, because those suck. Deshaun Foster, he had a terrible first impression. I'm not going to belabor this, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up. I'm not sure how I should feel about a Bruins first-year head coach. However, right now, sympathy is at the very top of my list. That's all I can say. Look, I get it. He was nervous. But when your opening statement turns into the entire speech, it's safe to say UCLA has a messaging problem. This is what head coach Deshaun Foster said. I'm sure you guys don't know too much about UCLA, our football program, but it's in LA. It's us and USC. We, inaudible laugh. I'm just basically excited. Really, that's it. Any questions? Close quote. I literally wanted to crawl under the table. I mean, he turned into the meme of the day on X, Twitter. So, yeah, I want to move past that. I'm sure if you spend any time on social media, go over there on wearc.com, or if you follow my Twitter, you saw what happened. You don't look. We're all human. I hope he had a better day. I didn't follow him along. As far as the overall, my notes, my observations, my impressions of my first Big Ten Media Day, as flawed as the Pac-12 conference was, okay, I'm going to give the former Pac-12 conference the nod regarding conference media days, at least as far as how they package it, the whole thing. They get the edge because of hospitality, location, and food. At least I think at least I know now where the Pac-12 spent all of the money. They knew how to throw a party. Okay, it was the big conference media day was held inside Lucas Oil Fieldhouse Stadium on the field. There's a lot of room, big stage. So again, lots of room. So you don't, media's not jockeying around trying to find a place to sit down. Or elbow room, and the strong Wi-Fi. So that was great. That made our job a lot easier. So after Deshaun Foster, the next coach up was Iowa's head coach, Kirk Ferentz. Yes, him, that guy, you know him. He might be the dean of the conference. However, the emperor was caught without any clothes, and he found himself having to cover up. When I got a question in up there on the big stage, I just wanted to know, what was the genesis for calling out Lincoln Riley and USC before their respective bowl games? And I said, have you had a chance to talk to Lincoln since then? Coach Ferentz answered, and he was very, 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 very gracious with the answer. He didn't have to be. I have not. It was just a takeaway from a bowl game they played in a couple of years ago, drive-by scouting, if you will, which is dangerous. And he had a smile when he said that. It's curiosity to me because I know they've got good athletes. We've played them. They're a tough football team. At least they were when we played them 5 years ago. My guess is I know they've taken some steps. And my guess is they're going to be we don't play them this year, so that's not our concern. They're going to be a factor in our conference. I'll go out on a limb and make that bold prediction that they'll be there when it's all said and done, close quote. So after that answer, I kind of wondered to myself, did he search out Coach Riley afterwards, to clarify his thoughts on USC? Because they hadn't spoken before that. Following Coach Ferentz was Jonathan Smith, Oregon State's former head coach, now Michigan State. USC and Michigan State do not play this year, but after lunch, when they, the coaches and the players do the media scrum, where they take lots of questions for like 45 minutes, I wanted one question for Coach Smith, and I asked him about if he was going to miss or what he could tell USC fans about Easton Mascarenas Arnold and Achille Arnold. And this is what he had to say. He said, USC, this is what USC is getting. Those dudes love football. Those are good dudes to be around. Easton's instincts to tackle, Achilles sideline to sideline, really smart and reacts. And most of all, they are great teammates. So there you go. Former head coach gets to talk about former players, and he can be gracious, number one, because he doesn't have to play them this year. Lincoln Riley, Coach Riley, he was next on the big stage. And first thing he wanted to do was make sure he took a moment. He wanted to pay tribute to his mentor, Mike Leach, and offer some support, make sure that he gets elected into the College Football Hall of Fame. I was able to get one pregame question with Coach Riley before the actual official proceedings began. So I asked him about the spring transfer portal window and if there were any challenges. And the way Coach Riley described the transfer portal, he answered it, and he also added what I thought was a really curious and interesting answer. He said, "We're not done yet." So he gave a long wordsmith answer about the spring and the fall transfer portal window. But all I wanted to hear was what he said at the very end. We're not done yet. So the portal answer, again, it was coach speak stuff. I'll go into what he was talking about. We're not done yet in a little bit. In fact, in just a second. He talked about, wanting a couple of guys when he was reflecting to the transfer portal situation after spring. And they went after him hard, but not at the price. And again, like I said, I'll go more into that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On USC. But as far as the we're not done yet, if it's not Gabriel Lightfoot at Fresno State, there is a very big, huge, mammoth offensive lineman from Hancock Junior College, Santa Maria, California. Look, I'm not sure if USC needs another interior offensive lineman. However, I got some film. His footwork, pretty good, really good. And he might be able to fill a role on the other side of the ball, defensive line. Remember that role everyone wanted Maximus Gibbs to have? Yeah. Fall down, kind of just make a dam. So you're taking up two offensive linemen. That way USC's linebackers can make plays. Stay tuned. We'll see where this goes. Again, not a lot of time between today and when USC starts fall camp. Excuse me. When myself and Scott Schrader from rearview.com, we got 15 minutes of exclusivity with Coach Riley when he was done on the big stage. And he explained that, it's still possible that USC can add one or more players, but it's not that easy. Not to mention, he brought up, you got the whole locker room part of the equation. There's that balance. You don't want to tip it one way or the other. Now, I tried to get him to commit to more media access when I had him by myself. We'll see what happens. I'm not holding my breath, but I asked him the question, hey, how about a little bit more with the local media that you trust? You can even have our phones. We had some fun. I had some fun with it. Now, before the ceremonies began, I wanted to let the USC players, including Kamari Ramsey, who was there representing USC, I wanted to let them know how the UCLA contingency arrived in Indianapolis. They were on my flight. I mentioned it on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC about my flight. Well, they were kind of mildly surprised. And a day later, as I'm thinking about it, I was reflecting. It's like, I'm flying coach. So is the UCLA athletic director, their players. And that kind of gave me the old Johnny Nansen recruiting vibes when he was at USC. I've told this anecdote in the past. It's been a while, but when Johnny Nansen was an assistant coach at USC, he got on the same plane as some Notre Dame assistant coaches. Yeah. And those assistant coaches were sitting in first class. Coach Nansen had to walk by them into coach. Yeah, not a good look. So overall, I thought everything moved along really nicely. Had a nice pace at the big conference media days. For me, I'm a structure guy. There wasn't a lot of structure. Again, it's just really big, really empty. And look, I have to admit, I didn't listen to Matt Rule, Nebraska's head coach, or James Franklin, Penn State's head coach, when they were on the big stage. Sorry, apologize. Only have so much time. I was moving around. However, I want to finish this segment off with this. Maybe the best name ever. He works for the Big Ten Network. His name is Jake Butt. And I guess after he listened to everyone talking, he had this to say at Big Ten Media Day. Antonlynn will have that defense significantly improved this year. USC will be competing for a conference championship. All right, I'll take it. I'm going to have more of what Coach Riley said in the third segment. In the next segment, I'm going to talk about what the players had to say at Big Ten Media Day. So stick around. We're going to do this first. Sure, a lot of you, like me, you grew up spending some time at your favorite Major League Baseball park. I was at Dodger Stadium, hanging out there, looking at the blank walls, enjoying inexpensive tickets. Today, we know going to games can be expensive. However, a Game Time with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. They have all-in prices that show your total up front. That way you know you're getting a great deal before you check out, and you can buy your tickets in seconds. It'll take you 2 taps. 2. USC fans, we are now, 38 days away from USC versus LSU? Do you have your tickets yet? Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. Even an hour after it starts, it's the place to find last-minute seats. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always find the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKE, D like David, O, and like Nancy for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I know you weren't watching Fox Sports today. I know you weren't watching ESPN today. You had the Big Ten Network on all day. So no one was really yelling or shouting. But when you're not watching the Big Ten Network and everyone's yelling or screaming at you on ESPN or Fox, make the switch to Locked on Sports today. It's our free 24/7 sports streaming channel, and it's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked on Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news and it's streaming for you 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Maybe Kamari Ramsey, USC safety, transferred from UCLA, followed his defensive coordinator, Antonlynn, over. When maybe he is a perfect example of the media training you're going to get at USC versus UCLA. I spoke about it in the first segment. I feel bad for Coach Deshaun Foster. I'm sure he's going to bounce back. Sure he will. Fight. So I asked Kamari. I said, and I didn't even ask him about Coach Foster. Wasn't going to go there. I don't know. I don't even know if he knows him. Anyways, I asked him what surprised him the most between his time at UCLA and now being at USC. And his answer actually kind of dovetailed off of what I was talking about and how well USC represents themselves when the camera is on. So I said, Kamari, what surprised you the most? Quote, honestly, it's the media attention. That's probably the main thing. The media attention that USC has. I mean, it's something you won't understand until you put on those shoes, which is something I went through. The media attention at USC is very much different, and I'm grateful for it. End quote. Now, that's an interesting statement. Number one, it tells you how much more serious USC takes football compared to UCLA. That's one way to look at it, right? He was also, Scott Schrader had a chance to ask him some questions, and he told Scott Schrader over at rearview.com, talking about the defense, how they're going to play. We're going to play fast, we're going to play physical, and we're going to play assignment football. We're going to play sound with our technique, and we're going to pay attention to the little details. Close quote. Look, if that's what Coach Lynn taught at UCLA, and that's what he's teaching at USC, good things are ahead. Now, I told you how UCLA arrived at Indianapolis. You know how I arrived with the masses. Now, USC players, they flew in style. This wasn't Miller Moss's first private jet experience. However, it was for Jonah Monheim. And so he got a chance to kind of stretch out in comfort versus, coach seating on American Airlines. All three of them, Jonah and Kamari and Miller Moss, GQ'd out. I mean, styling, nice suits, ties, looked sharp. And I bring that up really quickly because early on, I saw the Iowa players walking around in shorts and T-shirts. I was like, they're going to change, right? Anyways, I asked them before the cameras were on. This is an off-the-record type of thing. If they got their suits approved by Caleb Williams. Remember, Caleb flew to Italy to host a Hugo Boss fashion show. The answers I got were not what I anticipated. In fact, for what it's worth, Anthony Beavers Jr. is considered the team's fashion consultant. Apparently, the dude knows how to put it together. Now, these players, like I said, they know what questions are coming. I'm not sure they knew these questions were coming because the ignorance that was on display from some of the folks in the national media, it blew me away. I was rolling my eyes when these questions were being asked. In fact, I think Miller even noticed me one time and goes like, oh God. Jonah was asked, do you know where Purdue is located? It's like it was a geography test. And just seeing Jonah's facial expression, it had the look of, are you serious? He responded with like, yeah, it's in Lafayette. They asked Miller the same question when they moved over to his scrum. And again, I think Miller looked over at me and was like, I'm thinking to myself during this time, let's not ask, two of the smartest guys on USC's roster, 6th grade level geography questions. What were they trying to prove? I don't know. And here's something else. Over and over, the same tire trope was on display. One specific member from the media asked the USC players about the weather and how a team from Southern California is going to deal with it when it gets cold, when they have to deal with the inclement weather. Again, eye roll moment for me. Miller and Jonah, they handled it like pros. Deshaun Foster hopefully had some note cards by the time he had to meet the scrum and they asked him that question. I'm kidding. Now, before Coach Riley was even asked that question about the weather, I actually embedded the answer into the question. It needed to be heard before asking Coach Riley about the weather. Was it going to be a difference maker? Again, it was an easy one to ask. Coach Riley, how much will the weather play in a role in USC's preparation? That's how I asked the question. I said, look, USC knows what it's like to play in 110-degree weather one week and extreme cold of the Pacific Northwest or Colorado or Utah the next week. So, this isn't anything new. Coach Riley tried to offer the politically correct answer, but he knew the weather wouldn't play a role. But he did say the wind will, and he pointed out to a game I think Ohio State played at Northwestern, where C.J. Stroud just could not hit the side of a barn. So he said he does like playing on the road, and he's looking forward to visiting some new stadiums. As far as that. Now, that wasn't the worst question the USC players had to answer. I'm jumping back to the USC players now. There was a reporter from the Indy Star, okay? That's like one of the big newspapers in Indianapolis, who asked the question to Jonah as well as to Miller. Have you ever been to Indiana before? Yeah. There was a reason I had that dramatic pause right now. Number one, I couldn't believe I heard the question. And I'm thinking, you do know that USC plays Notre Dame every single year. And every other year, it's in South Bend, Indiana. This just goes to show you, people, look, just because USC plays in a major market, that doesn't mean people from across the country in the Southeast, the Midwest, the East Coast, they know everything that they need to know about USC. What, the Pac-12 is all about. Again, a lot of naivete, a lot of ignorance. I don't know, weird questions. But that one stole the show for me. And that was, I'll tell you what, again, there's a reason I'm making that the last question of this segment. Because I heard something else during big conference media day, and that one made me barf in my mouth a little bit. Half burp, half barf. Yeah. So Lincoln Riley was asked about his thoughts heading into year 3 at USC. And this is what he said. Obviously, I would say it was a lot different it's a lot different coming into year 3, just given the way last year ended. Probably a lot more optimistic in most ways. The program continues to grow and we continue to make improvements. There's just a climb that's happening right now. I think in a lot of ways, we've positioned ourselves certainly to be better than we were in year 1 and better than we were in year 2. Now we've got to take advantage of it. Obviously, a lot of things have changed, and there's not any part of this that we're not making progress on. I'm not the oldest coach. I haven't seen it all, but I've been through this enough with these blue bloods to know what's on the outside always going to be sensationalized one way or another. So I found that comment interesting. He's, again, a lot of coach speak in there, trying to say, hey, we made progress in year 1, took a step back in year 2. We got to make sure we're back on that same course we were on in year 1. This is why he didn't I think this is why he didn't go near the Paul Feinbaum stuff. Now, he did sort of take a swipe at Alabama and the Southeastern Conference in a way. During the media scrum, we're talking, a lot of out-of-conference scheduling talk was going on. And I'm getting to the Notre Dame part. Hang tight. First, he was asked about, out-of-conference scheduling. And again, he didn't talk directly to Paul Feinbaum's crap. What he did say was this. Alabama was ahead of the curve for years, I thought, on how they scheduled in the non-conference. They would occasionally hit the marquee non-conference game. They'd play two other not very good teams. They'd play one late, so they got essentially a little bit of a bye week that late in the season. They didn't schedule for their fans. They scheduled to win championships. So there's a lot of truth in that last sentence. And you might not like hearing it, but if you're being pragmatic, it makes a lot of sense. So take that, Paul Feinbaum. Coach Riley sounded and spoke like a true Pac-12 fan from the old days. I mean, he said, look, Alabama, other schools, well, he didn't mention other schools. He mentioned Alabama specifically. They would game the schedule. They would do whatever was necessary to make sure they had the best chance to make the BCS or the playoffs. So he's right in that sense. I don't like the way they do it. I get it. And the reason it was a topic is because the head of the playoff committee was there, Lieutenant General, Richard, I forgot his last name. I apologize. I will remember it for the next show. Anyways, he was talking about strength of schedule and how really smart guys in there, and they're going to take strength of schedule into consideration. I kind of went, okay, we'll see. They haven't in the past. So I asked Coach, since he didn't want to talk about Paul Feinbaum directly, I asked him why USC is in the mouths of USC why is USC in the mouths of the Southeastern Conference during their media days? What's your takeaway from this? This is what Coach Riley had to say. That's part of being at USC. That's part of being a blue blood program. I've had a chance to be in two of them. One of the things I've learned when you coach at a place like this, everything is going to be sensationalized. Use that word a lot today. I take it as a compliment that we're on a lot of people's minds. Excuse me. So, I had a show last week on Locked On USC where I said they're scared. There's no other reason to be talking about USC the way they're talking about them. Coach Riley sort of intimated that. Coach Riley was also asked this question. Coach, you kind of see some of the recruiting successes that programs like Oregon and Ohio State have that have their strength of their collectives. What is the long-term vision and plan for USC to be able to compete with the top of the Big Ten Conference? And Coach Riley was a little bit defensive with his answer here. We are at the top of the Big Ten Conference. I mean, we're at the top of any conference. I don't ever look at ourselves below anybody. Look at where Ohio State and Oregon were 2 years ago. Look at what they took over. Then look at what we took over. It takes time. I'm not a magician, and I can't wave a magic wand, but find one area that we haven't made progress. So this thing's got momentum. It's coming. Nothing's going to stop it. They started at a different point. We'll see where it ends up, end quote. That might have been the most aggressive answer from Coach Riley that I took away in my notes, in my observations from USC's day in the Big Ten Conference. Now, here's my final takeaway. You better stuck around for this. I'm not sure what made me more disappointed. The fact, well, I do know, but it's just a leading question. The fact that a reporter from Indiana did not know that USC plays Notre Dame in South Bend every other year, or that I actually heard Coach Riley say he would love to keep the Notre Dame game alive, but if eliminating the game would help USC win a national title, they would take a look at it. If I had the chance, he would have heard me say, over my dead body. Yeah, he's going to get some blowback. There's going to be some pushback from that. And I'm sure he'll clarify it. He'll add some context. And we understand what he was saying. But no. You've been a very, very, very bad man. You do not ever contemplate taking Notre Dame off of USC's schedule and vice versa. Period. End of story. That's the end of this episode of Locked on USC. I'm going to have a lot more from Big Conference Media Day. Got a lot to break down, but I had to get you my first impressions. So make sure you're back for tomorrow's episode. Get you some more notes, some more quotes, some more observations. And again, we are just days away from USC opening fall camp. So if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't become a subscriber yet, click that red subscribe button. Quick, it's easy, it's free. Thumbs up, smash it. It means a lot, helps the show grow. And click that bell notification button. That way you will not miss an episode and you won't miss anything. Because this is your source for everything USC. And when you're not making Locked on USC your first listen every day, when you're done making USC, Locked on USC your first listen every day, you then head on over to wearview.com because that's going to fill in the rest. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.